Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Chad Prather Show. Welcome to Studio 22. Going to have a lot of fun today, as always, in here. Thank you for tuning in. I want to encourage you, if you're watching this on Facebook, go over where you can find us on YouTube. Make sure when you go to YouTube, you go to my page. Chad Prather has my face on it, not one of those knockoffs. And trust me, they're out there. If you're seeing me and John Miller on the same YouTube page and the White House brief is, and you think you're not on my page, go to my page, okay? And then go to where podcasts are offered. And you can get that anywhere. All you got to do is you can go to SoundCloud, Stitcher, you can go to Apple Podcasts, Android, Google. They're everywhere. And subscribe to the Chad Prather Show. Make sure you're downloading and getting the notifications, all those good things. And please go to blazetv.com/Chad or /humor. In fact, do that. Go to blazetv.com/humor. That's one, Mark, we don't use enough of that one. That's humor.
You're right.
It's behind the paywall. We're capitalists. We like money. If I didn't like money, I'd move to Venezuela and eat out of the trash or something like that. You know, I believe in getting paid in this country, Mark. Do you work for free?
No, actually, I get paid when I work. It's
exactly.
Crazy.
Like we have this mindset in America that if you're working and not getting paid, you're a moron. So we work. We bring you things that... Hot News Natalie said, well, say what? We supposed to be getting paid up in here? Well, I didn't know. I ain't filled out no W-2. My bad.
Oh, I get paid.
Yeah, you do. With attention. With attention. Good Lord. Over in the Peanut Gallery, we got my lovely wife, Jade. Hello. Dr. Jade's in the house. Of course, Party Foul Steve and Hot News Natalie. You guys doing okay today?
Yes.
Great. Hanging out. It's hot in here. Who's that in the middle there? You got the head? Look at the head hiding out.
Don't ask.
We did that episode with John Miller in D.C. and the head, which is normally like a hidden Easter egg here in Studio 22. Sometimes people see it and usually they don't. But it kept popping up on the screen, a digitized head, and people were kind of freaking out. They thought they were having a psychedelic flashback from college when they dropped acid. And that head is a very beautiful head. Let's take a vote. Is that a woman's head or a man's head? Let's take a look.
The bone structure is really just flawless. It is beautiful.
Yeah, well, but if you saw somebody that looked like that, this is a prototype for our future sex robot that's going to be on blazetv.com.
I see a boy.
You can go to blazetv.com/getyoursex and use promo code THEHEAD, and you will be one happy customer in 6 to 8 weeks.
Chad, the question is, how does it identify? Mm-hmm.
It's a plastic head, so we're going to go with that.
But is that how it identifies?
It doesn't identify anything. It's a plastic head. Till Andrew Heaton comes in here and things get real freaky. So anyway, I want to welcome our special guest, Stu Burguiere. Stu Burguiere, the executive producer, and you have done everything there is to do. But the executive producer of the Glenn Beck Show, Wonderful World of Stu, which is, I think, one of the best shows that Blaze ever put out.
I think that's what I've been saying.
Still need to be making that
no
thing.
Kidding, right?
I've been binge watching over the last month of the old, World of Stu shows.
Yeah. Did you see the weight fluctuation? It's pretty dramatic from season to season. You've got 4 of them are really fat seasons, and then you've got 2 where I actually look almost moderately acceptable. And I'm also 25 years younger, apparently, in many of those seasons.
It's a good makeup job.
Yeah.
That's my thing. I'm month to month on the weight. I go up and down, up and down. I'm a 15-pound fluctuator.
Yes.
Up and down. And that camera, that matters on a camera.
It does. You really, there's a certain line where you ever get to that point, and this has only happened to me once or twice, where you look in the mirror and you're like, not that bad.
Yeah.
Every once in a while I get there, and then usually within a few weeks I've gained 15 to 20 pounds, and I'm again really upset with myself. But it's totally the same thing. I'm a little wider than 15. I'm probably 35.
Really?
Yeah, up and down around 35.
No.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm pretty good at it.
I remember years ago I was going to buy this home gym system, and you go into those stores and they really try to sell you. And here's this dude that's all buff, and he's talking about, he's like, I don't even step on a scale, man. It's all about the mirror for me. He's got this little thing. He's pulling the bars on. Oh, it's all about the mirror for me, man. I don't even care what I weigh. And I'm like, I hate this guy. I'm not buying anything.
Yeah, you're gonna believe him, the guy whose entire job, right, is looking like that.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care. It seems hard to believe. But, I get this naturally. It actually, I know it's impressive, but it actually comes very natural to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know some people who say, well, I don't work out. But they know they look good if you say that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I like to say that I don't work out, and then people believe me really fast. So that's kind of where I go.
Fact. So look at this specimen over here, Party Foul Steve. Look at him. He doesn't even care. You talk about a dude who just gives 0 Fs on what he looks like on camera. Look, there he is. Just doesn't even care.
Yeah.
Just doesn't even care. Just sits back, lets it all hang out, drinks his coffee.
Do you remember my reaction to the picture that you sent me?
Oh yeah,
From
so
BlazeTV?
we did a recent episode where Jade took over the show and she interviewed me. So we called it the Jade Prather Show. Candice, Queen of the Ethiopians, our EP here, she sent over a thumbnail with Jade, and Jade was like, "Oh, hell no.
Oh no, there were lots of different words, not just that.
I'm going to come unglued if that picture goes out public."
Well, and when I watched the episode, I was like, good God, when did my face get so fat?
And that's funny is Jade's been going to the workout thing. She's going to the
Yes.
group workout thing. And she's up at like 6:30 in the morning going to class and all that. And you're fine, baby.
Well, I don't know how to work out my face.
I was going to say, how do you work out your face?
There are videos from the 80s of exercise you can do for your face. I don't know if you remember those or not. Stu, how long have you been with Glenn Beck? Like since the days of Jesus?
Yes, 20 years, something like that.
You have seen a lot of things go on.
Yeah. It's been a long road. Some days it feels a lot longer than others, but 20 years. I go back to when I was, it was 1997, 98, something like that was when I started with him.
You grew up where, Connecticut?
Yeah.
But you wound up with him where, in Florida?
No, in Connecticut, actually.
Okay.
When I grow up, I'm in middle school, and like the cool radio station that's playing like all the big hits of the '80s, back in the '80s, was the station KC 101, and the morning show team was Glenn and Pat in the morning. Yeah. So I'm like 14 years old listening to the radio, and Glenn and Pat are the two hosts, and so they were kind of that was the big deal station in our town, New Haven, Connecticut. So when after high school and all that, I bounced around and did a couple things, and then decided to get into radio, and I went there basically like hanging balloons. Like I'd be the guy who would you'd come up and I would with a real emotionless face let you spin the prize wheel and you'd win a sticker, and I'd act excited for you. That was basically my role. It was impressive. But yeah, that's where I started with him. And he's, Glenn's like playing Britney Spears records. Yeah. You picture this. People think it's bizarre now, but this is, everyone in Connecticut saw him that way. That's who the guy was. Like he's doing the wacky bits, and he's the crazy morning guy. And so I started with him on that show, and he was like, you want to talk about a guy at the end of his rope. He was, there were days I think he had a noose that he was tying in the studio just so he could hang himself and get out of the day's show. Like he would show up. He used to do this thing where we'd do, the show started at 6 a.m, and he would tell me to pull a segment from the previous day to start at 6 a.m. as a flashback segment. Not because he wanted to let the audience get up to speed of what was going on. He just didn't want to show up until 6:15. And so we would play a 15-minute segment, and we'd go to commercial, and we'd come back out, and then he'd say play 2 or 3 songs. So then we play that. And then at the bottom, we get to 6:30. Again, the show started at 6. He's still not there. I'd have to do weather by myself, and I'm the only person in the studio. No one on the show shows up. I'm like an intern. And that was the way he rolled back then. It's changed quite a bit over the years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At what point in time? So at that stage in the game, did you guys just look at it and say, "All right, screw it, I'm going to talk radio"? Was that a salvation for him, or did he just keep on spinning records?
Yeah, well, he was considering getting out of radio completely at that time, and I had come from. I just loved talk radio. I grew up on sports radio and really loved sports radio. And I moved down to Florida for a while and listened to a couple of really good radio stations down there that did talk that was entertaining. You still got some of the news, but it was really more funny. It was like you were in the news area. You're in the zip code of the news, but it was really more entertaining. And that's what I kind of wanted to do coming back up here, and wound up really bumping into Glenn at the right time.
Yeah,
he's on his about to commit suicide, and
that is usually when you want to make friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Right there at that point in their life.
Yes, he was here's a guy who had immense success all around the nation. I picked him at his lowest point. It was brilliant by me because he was really he was basically failing in a tiny market at that point. And he wanted to get into, talk radio. He had flirted with it himself, and, in his mind, but had never done it. And I really wanted to do it. And there's very few, 20-year-olds that want to jump into that, that will actually work all the hours and are interested in the news. So, right place, right time, I guess.
Let that be a lesson to those of you listening. If you want to really make your career pop, go out and find a hidden genius who's on the verge of nervous breakdown. Befriend them and bring them up. Bring them.
That's why we're friends, Chad.
Trust me, Steve. I didn't tie the noose until we became friends, Steve. I was doing great till you popped on the scene and were like, "Hey, man, I'm hungry." But you have seen a lot of ups and downs with that deal. But one of my favorite you've been Stu for 20 years, but your name is Steven.
Yes, it's my curse. I did something at some point in a future or previous life that gave me this lot, which is he was we were at we're doing this gig at like a bar. Now remember, Glenn's an alcoholic, so of course he's in this world of Top 40 radio, so he has to make bar appearances every week, which is a brilliant thing for an alcoholic to do.
Sure.
And so he would come in and this guy just did not care at this point. I can't stress this enough. He did not care. So he would just show up late. He would, he would barely talk to listeners. He just kind of sit in the corner. He just didn't care. And so his partner, though, was this guy he kind of found from the town, Vinny Penn, who is a guy who now hosts a show at one of our affiliates in New Haven. And so this guy was a lot of energy, wanted to get out there, was young, was single, wanted to get out there and do his thing. And he was a big Bon Jovi fan. I remember he was a huge Bon Jovi fan, this guy. And so one night, Bon Jovi's in town and they go to, he's there and we have a meet and greet there. And so he does the typical pathetic fan thing of first of all, he gets nervous, then he starts drinking, then he gets hammered, then he goes to meet his big hero that he never thought he'd meet in his million years, and then just basically drools all over himself and slurs all of his words. And so he's absolutely hammered. And the same night, we have this appearance afterwards at this bar. So Glenn and Vinny are there, and I'm talking to Vinny, and he's slurring through some sort of some blender full of words that supposedly was a sentence. And he says, "So what's your name?" And I said Steve, and he only heard st. So he just assumed, instead of clarifying, he just assumed it was Stu because that was the name he thought of when he heard those first two letters. Yeah. Which is not how humans interact typically. But he was very drunk, and it was a quick thing though. He heard it and then he started making fun of it. Kind of thought it was a funny thing, and it was a loud bar and everything else. Well, he tells Glenn later on that my name is Stu, and Glenn is just oblivious. It's like. This other guy, he's drunk, he figures out, makes a mistake and figures it out, and we have a laugh. He tells Glenn this to kind of build on the joke, and Glenn's just oblivious for 3 or 4 months. I'm working with a guy 40 hours a week, and he's just calling me Stu every day, and I'm just kind of rolling with it, not knowing what to do. He's the big, cool morning show guy, and I'm just rolling with it. And eventually on the air one day, he made some joke about, Glenn was not at his peak comedy at this point. He made some joke about someone was talking about stew, the food. And he said, "Is that how your mom came up with the name Stu?" And I was like, first of all, it's not a particularly unique observation. If I was named Stu, I probably would have heard that 5,000 times, but my name is Steve. And he had absolutely no idea. Calling the wrong name for 3 or 4 months on the air, having no idea he was talking to someone who he didn't even know their name.
And here we are 20 years later.
Yeah, to the point where my wife calls me Stu. Everybody in my life calls me Stu, with the exception of my mom.
So, I've been bouncing around this studio for the last couple of years, but I've been here, really only for the last 4 or 5 months, where I've been in and out on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. So you and I have gotten to know each other, and I knew your name was Steven, but I didn't know what to call you. I was like, what does he want? Are we far enough on a personal level where I can call him by what I know his real name is? So on air, you got to be referred to as Stu, but, off the air, I'm like, hey, Steven.
I know. It's very nice.
I always say it with much trepidation.
It makes me feel special, though, I will say. I want to give you a big hug every time.
We should start calling Glenn Goo. Hey, Goo.
Let's do it.
Goo Beck. That would go over like a fart in church, man.
You're famous when you have, a name, a pseudo name. I think you should consider changing it legally.
I like that. It's what I tell myself. I'll say that. That's how
What's
I know.
going on the
It's
gray
the money
stuff?
maker.
It's interesting. Well, because I mean, my wife actually asked me when we first started dating. She's like, "I know your name's Steve, but everyone calls you Stu. Like, what do you want? Like, let's do this now, so like I don't have to change if this thing lasts more than a week, which got who thought it would. If I don't have to change." And I was thinking to myself, like, she's way too hot for me to try to change her. Just like Stu, it's perfect. Stu, call me whatever you want.
You're not going to be Steven when we get drunk on the weekends. You can put on a red wig, and I can be Steven.
There you go. So yeah, no, Stu all the way now for the most part. And it's bizarre. It's a bizarre thing because it's now so second nature to me.
Yeah.
And people always think like, oh, well, what if people call you Steve? Is that weird? No, it's my name. It's not weird. Like I don't feel weird about it. It's actually my name.
But what I love about the dynamic that you guys have had for all these years, and y'all have obviously traveled a lot of miles together, but to your credit, a lot of times you have a lot of EPs that are out there, editorial producers or executive producers or people who are really responsible for making these shows happen, whether it's the content or the look or the, when all of a sudden a news clip pops up. I mean, you're the one, you're working hard to make sure these things are happening. And of course, the Blaze entity has been a big machine for a while to make sure that Glenn gets what Glenn needs, because he has been the figurehead of that for so many years. But you have been intertwined in the actual telling of the news and the commentary and the talk radio and talk TV. Because to your own credit, I mean, you're an extraordinarily intelligent dude.
I think so.
I mean, and I'm not saying that to kiss your ass. I'm just saying, like, I seriously am listening to what you have to say on topics, because, I mean, it's one thing to be, to be studied or well read, but to be inundated with information where bytes and bits are coming at you on an everyday basis the way they are. And here you've been dealing with this for all these years.
Yeah, it's a different world. I mean, I used to think about it as like you have to become a 3-day expert on everything.
Right.
Where like a story comes in, you don't know anything about it. You have to learn everything, go on the air, and in 3 days it's out of the cycle and you no longer need the information. And so these things have to like kind of come in and go out, and you have to remember the important parts, which is kind of hard. I mean, it's like over the years, it's kind of changed, and like I wasn't on the air as much back in the day. Like when I first started, I would just basically chime in occasionally and laugh. And now, I get to actually like say things of some value occasionally.
Oh, he's being humble. He carries the load.
Yeah. Now, Glenn is the beneficiary of everything that I do. Is that way I look at it.
Glue. That's it. It's going to be Glue Beck.
Glue Beck.
Not glue.
Glue Beck.
Yeah.
Okay, Glue Beck. So when I'm on the air with Glue Beck, he, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where you get in the middle of it and it just sort of happens, I mean, it's like I mean, now doing this every day, right? Like you realize you just got to like, you're coming in, you're like figuring this stuff out on the fly. And like every other person on earth gets the benefit of being honest about it and saying like, I don't know. And sometimes you make mistakes and you learn stuff. And then in this business, though, man, if you do one little mistake, they're all over him. I mean, Glenn said one thing the other day on the air that was just kind of slightly not stated perfectly. It's this giant news cycle. He's trending nationally on Twitter for what? He didn't do anything. Yeah. And it's just a frustrating world to live in because it's not honest.
Well, it's like who's the CNN guy? Brian Stelter.
Yes,
this guy.
He's at CNN.
It's like a thumb with a tie around his first knuckle. I can't stand the guy. But when the Sri Lanka bombing came out, and when the count was at like 138 people, and Trump tweets 138 million people are dead. And obviously, it was a typo. It's one of those automatic. I mean, Trump's used to typing words like million and billion after 138.
Yes,
so they're probably just, the tweeter's like, oh, I know where he's going with this. So they just added million in, and Trump was probably tweeting at 3 a.m. sitting on the toilet as he usually does. And so he didn't think to double check it. But they did a whole CNN segment on the typo.
And how could that possibly be of value in a situation like that?
And the way they preface it was, if you're not going to pay attention to the little things, then how can we trust you with the big things? That's stupid.
It's idiotic, right? And where was, everybody makes mistakes, right? Like, I mean, like everybody does this. And here's a situation where we just went through how many weeks of coverage of the New Zealand story where, I mean, look, it was a really terrible thing. And it was, I'm glad it was covered. But the issues are reversed here, where in that particular case, Muslims are the victim. In this case, extremist Muslims are the ones doing the crimes. At least it looks like that is the way this turns out. And it's like, with the coverage going to hang? Now we go immediately to Donald Trump's typos.
Yeah.
Like this was weeks of coverage. They were all over. They were talking. The entire country got rid of guns because of this attack. We covered it as if it happened in our White House, let alone in New Zealand. Right. And here's a story with 6 times as many dead people, 500 injured. And, because the groups are rearranged, are we going to hear anything about this come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, next week? Probably not.
Yeah, and nobody, including Obama or Hillary, are wanting to use the word Christian. They don't, now Hillary was very outspoken when she talked about white supremacists carrying this out, and it was hate crimes against Muslims, and we can't allow these followers of Islam to be persecuted. I mean, these were the words that she was using on Twitter, but then she comes out and says, well, folks celebrating Easter. Or, Easter worshipers was what Obama said. Yeah. And I tried to do a little search just to see if I could just to find out if Hillary Clinton has ever tweeted and used the word Christian, and I couldn't find it. And so that's an interesting little thing. I would love to somebody smarter than me who could find that out to see. But you're exactly right.
Can we get Brian Stelter on the phone?
Can we get Stelter on the phone?
Yeah, because he's smarter than us for sure.
Let's get the thumb with the necktie on here. But I mean, this is a news story. I did. You ever go through and just look at some of the CNN stories that are out there? They're absolutely asinine. There was an entire article the other day on how to pronounce Pete Buttigieg's last name.
Yes.
And it included a video.
That's important.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. They did they were actually doing this wrong, too. They were saying boot a judge for a while, and now it's boot edge edge.
Buttigieg. I learned that from Ben Shapiro.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Buttigieg. There you go. He actually, and legitimately, the guy puts up signs at every campaign stop that says Buttigieg, so that people walk in, because that's the first question everybody asks. And it's like, we did this thing where we laid out all the candidates and we're like, all right, well, these people they're kind of the front runners. And then you have these people over here, this next tier, which is kind of like the people have got a shot at it. And then the next tier is like people who maybe if everything goes right, and then a bunch of people at the end that have no chance. And I put Buttigieg initially in that camp of like, they got a chance if everything goes right. Well, we're seeing what happens when everything goes right, because there's no reason. There's 19 freaking people in this race, 20 with Joe Biden, probably more. And they're not going to just let him have the nomination and never say one critical word about him. I don't know if they haven't figured out what to say about this guy, but they act as if he's the perfect candidate. And it's like, mayor of South Bend, Indiana is probably more than I'll ever accomplish in my life, because that's a giant zilch, honestly. But I mean, are we really going to let the mayor of South Bend, Indiana have one of the 2 major party nominations with no battle at all? They're just going to let this guy cruise all the way to going one-on-one with Donald Trump?
But he kissed his husband right
That's
there
true. That's
behind
nice.
the podium. I mean, they went cheek to cheek kiss. It was like scruff to scruff is what it was. I mean, they were full mouth on the scruff, but it wasn't like. I mean, like if you really
watched this closely.
I
did.
did. I did a full analysis of this thing.
Good.
Because here's the thing. I'm not saying that America couldn't handle a gay president. I'm not sure the world could handle a gay president, in that Brunei is now publicly stoning gays, and definitely the Middle East can't handle it. And I'm just saying, if as an American, if you're going to come out of the closet and you're going to be a real gay candidate, then be real gay. Don't face to face, scruff to scruff. I want you to be the most French American gay candidate you can be. I want you to show us your true affection. I mean, Mike Pence, you're Karen. You know what? Is that Mike's wife's name? Is that the vice president? It's Karen, right?
Yeah, you're
okay.
there.
I said that and I wasn't sure.
I don't know if I'm
right.
thinking of the most passionate lovers in the world. I'm thinking Pence's, though. That's not.
You can do, like at the inaugural ball, you could see them. It's like they automatically had that invisible balloon between them when they were dancing, They were so used to doing the school dance thing.
Hands up on the sides.
Foxtrot. Now I'm going to take a step back and a side this way and forward. And so.
Aren't they kind of the victims, though, of their own sort of this intersectional thing that they're doing? Because, like,
I agree.
They can't say bad things about people who are gay legally. I think that they believe maybe if it's a gay Republican, they could say something bad about them, but they can't say anything bad about this guy because he's gay. Yeah. So they're all struggling as to figure out what to say that's negative about this candidate, and they're all going to get beat up because of it. It's kind of an interest. I mean, look, it's one thing to go through and analyze this stuff. It's another thing to step back and just say, this is just fun to watch. Yeah. Like they're all flailing against each other to see who could be the bigger socialist.
Which is why I say what I say. I want you to go full on gay.
Okay, yeah.
I want you to show us what a real gay romantic relationship, put it on camera, show America what we're getting.
There's a lot of websites that will do this for you.
I know,
You
but I
realize
want
that, right?
Buttigieg to do it.
Okay.
I want him to come out full gay. If you're gonna, I mean, I want to see
You don't think he's come out as half gay?
No, I want him to. I want us to see it though. I want to see if the American people really want to see two dudes going tongue on tongue, and really just hammering down like smell my fist. I want you to just come Sodom and Gomorrah and bring it out. Really, I do, because then we'll see if we're ready. Then we'll see if we're ready.
I don't think we need to have every intimate detail of the
Oh no,
relationship.
I want to
tell
see.
us-
I want to see Obama kiss Michael so bad. I want to bury Michael make out.
I can't think of any politician that I want to see do anything in this realm, let alone Pete Buttigieg.
Does Melania count as a politician? No, she doesn't.
No, she doesn't.
Oh, I want to see. Anyway, what?
Yeah, Nikki
Get in the
Haley,
microphone,
Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
As far as politicians go, I mean,
You're right.
Okay, thank
bad
you.
idea on the Prather from the Prather camp. I just want to I can handle because I'm taking Stu what you're saying, and I don't even want to see Don kiss Melania. I don't want to see
No,
that.
it's all is creepy. I don't know what
I
it
don't
is
wanna
about those
see that.
relationships.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is this thing. I kind of see what you're getting at. That, and when it comes to when it comes to movies and entertainment and everything, we have crossed the line of saying hey, you got to be cool with other people. I don't care what other people do.
Sure.
If other people want to do that, that's totally cool with them. It used to be called, what's their sexual preference, right? You'd be like, all right, you respect their sexual preference. Well, indicating that sexual preference is a thing indicates that I prefer women, right? I have a sexual preference too, right? And I prefer women. So the fact that I don't want to go watch Brokeback Mountain does not mean that I don't want gays to have the right to vote. But if it was my sexual preference to watch two dudes make out, I'd show up for it, right? I'd be cheering it on, but it's not. And I would assume it's the same for if Pete Buttigieg was like, you know what, my sexual preference is to kiss the scruff on the cheek of my man. That's great. But I would assume he's not as entertained as I might be at Charlize Theron.
Of course, a lot of the Charlize Theron, Atomic Blonde.
Yes.
Yeah. We don't know if she's got a boy or a girl child, but whatever. Anyway, but I'm with you on that. And I say all that tongue-in-cheek and facetiously because I don't want to see politicians make out. And I really don't care if Pete Buttigieg kisses his husband. I really don't care. I don't care who he sleeps with. I don't care what he does. But you're right. So you go back. He says, well, in that CNN article, he said, I just want people to call me Mayor Pete. I mean, what happens when you're president? Do we call you President Pete? I mean,
PP. Yeah, PP. That would be a rough nickname. Yeah, I guess that's what you do. I don't know. Is this guy actually going to win? I mean, It seems like right now he's having this little run. But remember, Herman Cain had a little run. Fred Thompson had a little run. These guys there's these people. Wesley Clark had a little run back in the day. This does happen. I mean, Carly Fiorina was up in the top of in 16 for a few days. I just don't know. I mean, the other candidates are so bad. Maybe this guy could actually rise to the top. I mean, is Bernie Sanders really going to be the next president of the United States, or at least be running for the Democrats? It's just hard to believe.
I think we are. Well, what is your opinion? I mean, seriously, who do you think is the 2020 Democrat candidate? Are they even in the race yet?
Certainly Biden has a chance. He's supposed to get in this week, depending on when you're listening to this. I think the one, if I were to give you the one I fear, and I think as far as a real chance to win and a person who I think would be very far left if elected, but not as crazy an ideologue as Bernie Sanders, who will kind of say anything. You can't get to the left of Sanders. And the guy went to the freaking Soviet Union on his honeymoon. You can't get to the left of a guy who went to the Soviet Union on his honeymoon. That's just impossible. The one I would pick out of that group would be, the Buttigieg is an interesting threat. I just don't see how you go from mayor of South Bend, Indiana to the presidency, because we would, I guess Donald Trump went from the apprentice to the presidency. Maybe I'm wrong on that. It's Kamala Harris. I think Harris is, she checks off all the boxes for the left, right? She's very far left, socialist type president or policy wise. She is intersectional enough to, she's not some white male. You don't want a white male in there. You don't even want a white female in there. That's not even far enough. But at least you have a little bit of flair there in the person of color arena. She's very well spoken. She's generally speaking pretty likable. I mean, she can, she's good on like, late night shows and things like that. She has a lot of that going for her. And she comes from a prosecutor background. So like you think of how awful Hillary Clinton looked like the deer in headlights when she was in those debates with Trump. Trump brings a certain kind of pressure that no other candidate has ever brought. And you're on the bright lights of that stage in a debate with Donald Trump. You better have someone who sat there and like argued with murderers before, right? Like this is the type of profile that she's not going to fold like Hillary Clinton, I don't think. Whether she can win the nomination or not, I mean, she's got a lot of money. She's got a big base of support in California when it comes to financial level. She's like the only Democrat that's not even hiding that she's taking big money donations. Like she's just like, screw it, I'm going for it. And she's playing it, I think, so far relatively smart. Like she hasn't made any big mistakes. She's not out there all the time. She's not. People aren't getting sick of her. She's kind of hanging back in that sort of bottom of the top tier right now. Yeah. I think she's an interesting one. I mean, I don't want to see any of them be president of the United States, frankly. And some of them I think can't be. There's probably a certain amount down that bottom tier that are just so terrible that they're never going to win. Yeah. But
Kamala, and I agree with you on that. And it's scary. It's a scary proposition. Yeah. It's a scary thought because she is pretty far left. But you're right. She's kind of hanging back, pacing herself, just kind of like, I'm here, waiting. I'll make my move when the time. It's still very, very early. Because you're right. I think that if you tried to really push forward right now, then you have somebody like Biden who jumps in the race, and now you're overshadowed. So I think a lot of these folks, and Biden, I think, has done the same thing. I don't think there's any question whatsoever that Biden's going to be in the race. Yeah. And again, depending on when this episode comes out, which I'm sure he's already in the race by the time people are listening to this. But a Biden-Harris ticket would be brutal.
Yeah, that could be
really brutal.
Yeah, Biden's interesting because everyone kind of assumes he's going to run to the middle, but I don't know what the evidence of that is. I mean, the guy was one of the most progressive senators in the Senate when he ran in 2008. He was, and he became vice president. The guy has a really left-wing voting record. I think what fools people is like he's just really old. So he was around like 50 years ago when it was the left-wing position to have a strong border. Right? Like that was just like he's just been around through all of these cycles, and that kind of makes him look occasionally like he's more right-wing. He's really not. And I think the media does the Republican Party. Farty is probably not a bad description at times. Does the Republican Party endless favors by focusing on people like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez instead of someone like Kamala Harris because she's a dunce, and comparing to Kamala, who's like smart and well spoken and much scarier face of socialism. She doesn't admit it. She's likable. Ocasio-Cortez is likable to some in that sort of like, she's kind of silly and like, hey, what a cool story kind of way. Kamala Harris is a serious person who's done serious things in her life and is
including fornication.
She's done that with a lot. She did have that affair.
A little bit Willie Brown.
Yeah, the Willie Brown thing's interesting. Playgirl's top 10 sexiest man in the world. Willie Brown won in 1984. Now, you'd wonder why I know that. I am a subscriber, obviously, but why would I know that?
Again, back to my theory. Just stick with liberalism long enough, you become an ugly person.
That's true.
You can go from being one of the top 10 sexiest men in the world to being what we know today as Willie Brown.
Yeah. I'm fascinated, though, because like here we are in this Me Too moment, right? Where that's what we're talking about. We get rich, powerful guys and should not be hitting on young women. Well, this is kind of the other side of Me Too. Kamala Harris was outwardly helped by her relationship, an affair at the workplace with a rich, powerful man. She was escalated throughout her career. He was supported her multiple times, got all sorts of connections through it. It's like sometimes the Me Too thing, I guess, kind of works out well, is kind of the lesson we're supposed to learn, I guess, from that, which is a strange message from Democrats. Yeah. Because, I mean, that was what, that was really part of her life, and it just seems to be blown off now.
It does, and you bring up an extra special point when you say it's easy, low-hanging fruit to pick on AOC, but we need to focus on the ones who are the true threats.
Yeah.
Because as Nancy Pelosi said, in the district where AOC ran, a cup of water could have won if they ran on the Democratic ticket. And I don't think she meant that as the insult that it was, but she's right. Yeah. Like a pear that with a D in front of it would have won in that district. So,
It's true.
anybody would. But Kamala Harris, another story.
Yeah, I mean, she's in California, which Democrats are certainly favored, not quite as dramatically as as Ocasio's district. I mean, it's one of those things with Ocasio. Like, it is an interesting story, right? Like this kind of crazy young socialist is be able to knock out. But it wasn't knocking out the Republican that was interesting. It was knocking out the Democrat who had been there for a zillion years.
Right.
I mean, that was that race a few years ago where a guy won the Democratic nomination for the Senate in South Carolina against Jim DeMint. His name was Alvin Green, and I swear people thought he was a singer. The only reason he won, the guy there was another guy who was running seriously. This guy hadn't done any debates. He had like $500 in total donations, and he won the primary, and then was going up against Jim DeMint, and the guy could barely speak coherently. I just think they thought Alvin Green sounds familiar.
So in love with you, whatever you want me to.
They wanted some soul. They wanted some soul in the Senate.
It's all right with me. So let's take it to the peanut gallery. Who wins the Democratic nomination in 2020?
I don't even know the whole list.
Nobody knows
only
the
19.
whole
I know. I don't
list.
know.
I mean, it's crazy. Steve, do you have an opinion on that? You just flip a
Not
coin.
Beto.
Natalie?
Please not him.
That's interesting about Kamala, and that's certainly something worth putting some weight into that I'm going to do some research. I really appreciate that. But I've always, my head has always gone to Biden.
Yeah.
Because I feel like everybody takes him serious. It's obviously not Swalwell, who is on my S list right now.
Yeah.
But
you know who else doesn't think it's Swalwell? Like this is the type of guy who runs for president with no intention of ever becoming president.
No.
He's running to give himself extra Twitter followers and get on MSNBC more often.
But that's exactly right. Anybody that gets on Steve Colbert and says, I'm going to announce my presidency, comes running up, just did my 3 miles. I'm just running.
So creepy.
I'll make an announcement tonight.
It's creepy.
Get in 3 more miles. Weird.
he's just a guy that thinks he's pretty.
He is.
Well,
He's
again,
quite
like I've said over and over, he is the douchebag cousin that shows up at Thanksgiving and says, hey, Stu, if we can get a minute alone, I got an opportunity that I think you'd be perfect for.
Oh, that's exactly him. You're
right. That's the dude, man.
And it's like multi-level marketing. Yes,
deal.
he's selling,
got a whole thing.
He's selling you something with acai berries in it. That's what he's doing. Yes.
I got something, dude, you're going to feel great. You talk about that 35-pound fluctuation in weight loss, you'll never have to worry about that again.
It sells itself.
Dude. Yeah.
That is Eric Swalwell. You're right.
That's him.
That is amazing.
He's the ultimate Ponzi pyramid multi-level guy, MLM.
And I want to take
I got a
all your
business
guns.
opportunity for you. What,
Yeah.
Natalie?
I want to take all your guns.
Yeah.
Maybe.
He's running the big anti-Second Amendment nomination, which does not. I mean, I don't think it works out well in this country, certainly nationwide.
No.
And then he won't debate Dana Lash, which I thought was fascinating because I mean. He's like, I want to debate Ollie North. It's like, Ollie's he's a great guy, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But people are terrified of Dana. Everybody's terrified of Dana
I'm
because she will
terrified of Dana.
destroy you in a debate on guns.
We just got a text from Dana. What did she say?
Yeah, she texted. Well, it's from Chris, but because Dana's on the air. But well, we invited her to be on the show, but she was going to be on the air. She was very kind. But they did say she would love to debate them all simultaneously. Swalwell literally just killed his own candidacy by calling her out and then chickening out. Dana is standing there like Doc Holliday in Tombstone saying, say when. Bring it. I'm your huckleberry.
You know Daisy, Eric. You know Daisy.
I love Chris. He's my man. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
However, Eric Swalwell killed Eric Swalwell's candidacy
sure
by
did.
being Eric Swalwell.
Just that quick. Swalwell went to being a swell wall. Yeah, Trump's going to build that swell wall. No, it's crazy. It's a comedy of hypocrisy. It's a comedy of errors. It's a comedy of, how can you really put as a front runner an old white guy?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, because Biden has obviously no intersectional points. He gets none on that scale.
Zero.
And the one thing I think Biden can do well is deal with the pressure of Trump, right? Like he's the one guy, he'll go in there, he'll cut him off. They'll both be screaming at each other and neither one will stop talking until they walk off the stage. But he's a gaffe machine. He could easily mess this thing up. But he has to be the front runner. He's still leading in all these polls. You didn't answer your own question. Who do you think is going to win?
I think it'll be Biden.
Biden?
I still think, though, to go out on a limb. Well, let me say this about Biden. So for whatever 30 years now, Biden's kind of been that guy who's like, well, I don't really want to be here, but
Yeah.
America really needs me.
Yep.
You know, and I just need to be here because.
And they keep telling him they don't.
They just
he
keep
keeps
asking
running
me.
and he keeps saying, no, we don't need you.
And so I'm just saying, we don't, dude. We don't need the help. We're okay without it. I'll say this as a dark horse. I wouldn't. I can almost see based on that same. Well, I didn't want to do it, but they need me and they're pulling me, and I can see Hillary Clinton stepping back into this
Really?
thing. I can see it
gosh.
just being one of those where it gets down to the wire, and all of a sudden she's like, I was happy in retirement, but America's called.
I hope she does. That's a lot of good entertainment.
Yes.
Now, I mean, what are the odds of it? I don't know, but man, it wouldn't surprise me based on that logic if all of a sudden she stepped in there. But no, I think it's Biden, and I agree with you. I think Harris has an opportunity to be there. Beyond that, it gets pretty slim.
Yeah, I mean, the Beto thing seems to have fallen apart quickly. It is early, though, and he is raising a lot of money.
But when he's got his own
around.
people, and young people, too, who are calling him out in his own little, impromptu town halls at the mall, and they're like, you took lobbyist money. You said you weren't going to take lobby money.
Yeah, and I some of that stuff I think is really important, and some of it kind of goes over people's heads when you get into the issues. I don't know if anyone cares about issues anymore. I feel like in this
No, it
country,
doesn't matter.
I don't think anyone cares. But like the two things I think with Beto are really hurting him is one, he's jumping on the counters like a cat all the time. Yeah, and that's a weird thing to do. People, it's off-putting. And the hand gestures are, I've never seen anything like it. He's like one of those blow-up things that are out front of mattress stores and just keep going, like inflating and going up with the flailing arms all over the place. Yeah. I've never seen any person with the wild hand gestures of this of Beto.
Well, there was a video out a couple of weeks ago of him trying to give an interview in a parking lot, and he's trying to get the words out, and there was a guy who said, "Look, I've been in law enforcement for 35 years in narcotics." He said, "This guy's a tweaker. He's tweaking." He said, "I'm telling you, he's got all the signs of being a tweaker." And I'm not going to say, but I'm like, maybe they're slipping something through the gate there in El Paso. I don't know. But I mean, he definitely has some odd eccentricities when it comes to his communication skills.
Yeah, and he's not good. I mean, we saw it in Texas. Right. He was not good in the debate. I mean, he had a couple of big like viral videos, right? Like he had a couple of like, hey, now this posted just ran on Colin Kaepernick and it gets a bunch of views. Yeah. I don't necessarily think that's the path to the presidency. Maybe it is in today's day and age. I don't know. But I think the only other one maybe Amy Klobuchar has a VP vibe. I feel like she is like a top tier VP person, but I don't think she has a chance to actually win. I don't know. I mean, it's not a good field. It's a large field, but it's not a good field.
Well, can I throw in another name real quick? We've talked about this one before. I just wanted your opinion. I know that this name is not in the running, but in the back of my head, it always is Michelle Obama. She would be somebody worth paying attention to if that name was thrown into the hat. I just would love your opinion.
I think you're totally right. I mean, she's obviously been through this stuff before. I think I actually entertain the idea that she may run. Yeah. I think if this thing falls apart, it's not impossible still. And I think if she were to jump into the race, she would be immediately the front runner. She would, because she has. I don't think it would necessarily last, but she is, she's one of those people who I think has that sort of, there's some cachet there that she'd be able to she's bigger than the media cycle,
Well, here's what I think people think when they hear that. I think people go back to saying, well, if we elect Hillary Clinton, we're getting Bill again. But Hillary showed real fast that she wasn't Bill.
Right.
And she did everything she could to Bill's chagrin to not be Bill. Had she been more Bill-esque, she probably would have been hands down far. Because let's face it, Bill's a people person in a lot of ways. Oh, yeah. In a lot of ways.
He is for the people.
There's no question about it when it comes to charisma. If Bill Clinton comes in the room and talks to you, you feel like you're the only person on the planet.
He owns the room. He works it.
He's got it. And you feel special with Bill Clinton. Hillary Clinton.
That's a skill, though. I mean, that's a tough
cigar with him.
Yeah. Share a cigar.
Ways. Yeah. But that's not, you don't get that through marriage, right? Like that's a freaking tough characteristic.
I go back to the Michelle point. I go back to her saying things like, I've been ashamed. This is the first time I've ever been proud of my country.
Yeah.
There are things like that. She's not Barack Obama.
No. And she's, I think, more ideological than him in many ways.
Way more.
So that very well come out over time. I mean, again, I don't necessarily think she would win for sure if she jumped in, but she would go to the top of the polls immediately.
No question.
But I think it would ride the wave that people would think they were getting. Unlike Hillary Clinton to Bill, people would feel like they were getting Barack Obama back in office if they elected Michelle.
And I agree, but I will say this. The difference between Bill and Barack is there was less of an empty shell there with Bill Clinton than there was with Barack Obama. Barack Obama was nothing but air. I mean, to me that was an 8-year scandal. With the coming out of the Mueller report and these things, and everybody says, "Oh, treason, criminal." You know, I read the Mueller report as Trump. You know, he was treasonous as a president. I'm like, no, all this stuff happened while Obama was the president. Yeah. So what you're saying is, if you want to say anybody was engaged in crime or treason, it's the Obama administration. So,
but does anyone who follows the left, believe that? Because they think that Barack Obama was amazing.
Oh, they thought he was a messiah.
So they get him back.
But the point I'm making is Bill Clinton actually did some things.
Yeah.
Like he actually did some things that were, they considered him the first black president, because, I mean, he did a lot of stuff for the African-American community. Did I like him? No. Did I appreciate him? No. I could about him all day long, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. I think it's interesting, the Obama thing now, it seems almost like quaint in comparison to what we're seeing now. It's like Bernie Sanders, who's, right now without Biden in, as we do tape this, it's like he is a guy who is the leader of the pack, right? Mm-hmm. Bernie Sanders. And here's a guy who in 2013 introduces Medicare for all. He's been believing this for a long time. Again, he went to the Soviet Union on his honeymoon. He knows this stuff. He
and at an underwear party.
Exactly. It just sounds like fun. Then 2013, he announces, he puts this bill up there and gets 0 co-sponsors in the entire Democratic Senate. No one. In 2013, not 2004, not 1985, 2013. This is not that long ago. This is second-term Obama, and he gets no Democrats to come on board with him. And here we are later, now every candidate in the race that has any chance to win has to support this, or you don't. They actually think of Barack Obama as too far to the right.
Yeah.
And I think really the main chance for anything with Michelle to happen is you could see a scenario where let's say a Biden wins the nomination and he goes through and he's locked the thing up, and then some big scandal happens, or for some reason he's a health concern and needs to drop out of the race or whatever. You could see her as kind of this white knight candidate to kind of come in and save the whole thing. Look, we can all unite around Michelle, right, guys? You could see something like that happening, I think.
Except for divorced dads.
Yeah,
wasn't she the one that said something about that?
I don't remember that one.
Yeah,
she said all kind of things.
Yeah, here's what
I remember. You remember when Barack Obama, the little video came out where he was on the plane and his staff standing around. He turns around, and he's got an erection in his pants. You remember that video? Did you see it?
What videos are you watching?
You got to see
Roll the
that.
tape.
That one's out there. What I'm curious is what's going to happen when Michelle turns around and she's got an erection. That's going to be a whole other deal. Stu Burguiere.
Look, I don't believe that's true. However, if it was, that's a benefit in the primary.
Exactly. That's one more level of intersectionality
Pete
that you need.
Buttigieg is going to be boring next to that.
I'll have to look up the Obama on the plane video. It's pretty interesting. If you're into that,
that does not sound interesting at all.
Pete Buttigieg kind of thing.
You have recommended several videos today, sir, and I'm not watching any of them.
I know. Well, too much internet for me. Let's go back. One more thing I want to ask you, and we got to get out of here. One thing. So back during the primaries, 2016. Obviously, I know Glenn was a Ted Cruz guy. Mm-hmm. I was a Ted Cruz guy. I was not. I didn't think Trump. I thought it was a novelty. Mm-hmm. I never could figure out what the guy was talking about.
No.
I mean, I never knew what he was saying. My mother was big time Trump. Don't talk bad about Trump. Uh-huh. Trump and Jesus. I don't talk bad about those two guys.
Yeah, we heard that a lot.
I'm sure.
In 2016,
And so I know that once Trump was elected, and because of, I get it a ton. I don't know how you can align yourself with a guy like Glenn Beck, who, all this stuff. And I'm like, people are going to.
What are you going to do, right?
Think through it, folks. But I imagine you guys came through a lot of flack.
We did, yeah. I mean, people, I think you could look back at that and it's like, Well, Donald Trump didn't have a good record.
Right.
He didn't. And we said this when we went through this process. It's like, well, Trump's record was a guy who was largely on the left, who donated to people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and did things that we would never accept from anyone else.
Buddies with the
history.
Clintons?
Yeah, I mean,
Al Sharpton?
yeah,
Jesse Jackson?
It's who he was, and he said, and the thing is, if you really listen to him, he never did say he changed. He just kind of started saying, I'm this person. And it made me really nervous, honestly, in that field where I thought there was actually a lot of really good candidates. Someone like Bobby Jindal, who got 0% in most of those polls and was dropped out in a month. Yeah. That's a really accomplished, smart guy.
Right.
That could have probably been a good conservative president. Cruz was good, and a lot of people liked Rubio, and it was a wide field. It wasn't just Jeb Bush.
Right.
So I can understand it. I mean, I think we said when Donald Trump gets elected, you step back and you say, look, what we were doing is trying to look at his past and say what we think his future would look like. Mm-hmm. Once he becomes president, there's no need to do that, right?
Yeah,
exactly. You look at what his record is, and I think he's done. I absolutely far exceeded my expectations. Yeah, done some really good things. There's still a lot of stuff I don't like.
Me too.
Me
too. I just did a video came out recently on social media where I said, it's one thing to say that politicians are less than honorable. To say, well, he's a less than honorable politician. No, that's all politicians.
Yeah,
he's a guy that got the job by saying, oh, yeah, I'm less than honorable, but I'm not trying to hide that or even change that. That's just who I am. Yeah. Now, do you want me to do this job or not?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I'm trying to hire a hitman who's never killed anybody. No.
Yeah.
And so I'd rather have a guy with some experience that knows how to get in there and get his hands dirty, and that's sort of what he's done.
Yeah,
and so on that, I have to give him the credit.
Yeah, no, he's done. And look, he's done some good things. I mean, you see that in the Mueller report, right? You go through it, and it's like, well, was he colluding with the Russians? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard from day one. I did not think he was colluding with the Russians. It always seemed like a dumb thing to do. And you look through the entire report, and I had to suffer through reading it last week. And it's like the second half where it's these obstruction of justice claims. And it's like, did the guy relatively routinely lie to the press about what he was doing? Absolutely. There's no question about it. But when it came down to dealing with the actual investigators, generally speaking, he went to them and just did what he had to do. He was hiding documents from the press like crazy, but turning them over to investigators.
Right.
There's no crime in lying to the press.
Right.
I wish he didn't prioritize this day-to-day press battle thing as much as he does.
I agree.
He's got, the border security thing, he's got a lot of priorities that I really agree with. And I wish he would spend a little more time on that and a little less time dealing with whatever nonsense MSNBC. Leave that to idiots like us. You know what I mean? You're the president of the United States. Yeah. You don't need to deal with whatever Brian Stelter is saying. Leave that to the people in the 900-degree studio to talk about. We'll handle that.
Party time, Mom.
He likes it though. He likes that part of the job. He likes fighting with the NFL. He likes that back and forth, and I think that's kind of what gives him his energy. And
that's Trump.
Yeah, it's what he likes.
What he is.
So it's part of the package. But bottom line is there's been some really good things that have happened, and you gotta get excited about those things. Yeah. A lot of people were like, oh well, I love him. It's Trump and Jesus on one side, and it's Trump and Satan on the other. And it's like, well, how about this? We look at what he does every day, not even what he says, because I've given up listening to what he says. First of all, as you mentioned, the words don't come in the right order, so I can't tell what he's saying most of the time. But secondly, he tells us all the time, I'm a great negotiator. And he'll say, you know what, Kim Jong-un is the devil and we're about to bomb him. And the next day he's my buddy and he's my friend. He's telling us that he doesn't mean any of the things he says publicly. Yeah. It's part of a big negotiation with him. He'll say whatever he needs to do to get through a moment. So there's no point in focusing on that. If you kind of step back, and Bill O'Reilly was one of the first people that helped me crystallize this in an understanding of Trump, is that he's a very transactional person. Mm-hmm. So that transaction at that moment, that's one thing. But if you step back from what he's saying and just focus on what actually occurs, is he pro-Russia? Well, he keeps saying nice things about Vladimir Putin, but he also seems to put a lot of sanctions on Russia. And he's tougher on Russia than Obama ever was in reality and when it comes to policy. And if you can step back and look at it that way, you can remain mildly sane in this period. And that's all I'm rooting for at this point.
You're exactly right. I've said recently in a video, hang on, let me take a drink. Mm-hmm. melted ice, folks. It's not liquor.
Now, you're saying you're going to watch another video. It's not going to be another one of these where I'm looking at someone's pants or.
No, look at them
Okay.
over in the party fouls area. They were just looking it up. Y'all just watched the erection video, didn't you?
I totally watched the
I was
erection
sitting there.
video.
I'm listening to Stu make a valid, intelligent.
We wouldn't
you
be
know,
able to speak to whatever he said for the last 5 minutes because
Okay.
we've been
Stu-
watching
Stu
a video
being
of an
adroit over here. I
erection.
mean, completely competent in this conversation, and I can see you guys over there going, "Oh,
I was a little impressed.
Barack Obama's penis in his pants," and it exists, Mark. It exists. We'll throw that up later for you people.
Stereotypes might be maybe correct.
The only stereotype no one ever fights.
But no, Obama could never put pressure on Russia because he was too busy coddling up to Iran, and he trying to make. And so you can't piss off Russia and appease Iran.
It's a big deal. I mean, they fought for that Iran deal with their lives. I mean, they admitted lying to reporter after reporter after reporter about it to get it passed. So you're right. They couldn't do anything to Russia. And, they even say that now. I mean, like people even on the left will admit it now. Yeah. Of course, they always admit it after the fact when you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. Well, going to be interesting as we head into 2020. Hopefully, and yeah, look, I mean, Trump's what you got. I mean, and look, you're probably living in one of the best Americas you've ever lived in this generation. If you want a job, you can go out and get one. It's just a matter of if you don't want one, then you won't get one unless Ocasio-Cortez gets her Green New Deal. And then, hey, she says we'll even pay basic income to those who are unwilling to work, which is just asinine. I mean, this stuff is so silly. But, if you don't want Uncle Sneezy fixing the fries, don't hire him to work at McDonald's because he's going to sneeze in the fries. He makes good fries, but he's going to sneeze in the fries, and that's kind of what I feel like we got with Donald Trump. Here's a guy who
again, your analogies are killing me.
But
wait, how do you know if he makes good fries when he's sneezing in the fries?
Like,
Those are not good fries.
If you don't want somebody sneezing on your French fries at McDonald's, don't hire Uncle Sneezy. Trump's got flaws. He's got fails. He's got scars. He's got things that are out there. But look, we hired him to do a certain job.
Yep.
He's so far been doing, for the most part, that job. And I say that Trump is not right of center. I still think he's left of center. And I think that's why he appears so far right, is because the left has gone so far left to get away from him.
I think that's very astute, actually. I think that's exactly the truth. I mean, I think people a lot of times confuse conservative and loud as if they're the same two things. Right. Like the fact that Trump's border policy is not all that different than,
it's been there
everybody,
for 30 years.
Yeah, running as a Republican and the Democrats of the early 90s were saying the same things. It's not out of the mainstream of the political conversation, but because he says it loud and he throws in things when he's talking about rapists and, he does that sort of stuff, and that's Trump. But that doesn't make the policy any different. Like, I mean, it's the same policy. We have laws and you need to enforce them. Those are basics, right? Basics for a nation to actually operate. So, I mean, I guess when you step back and you say, okay, well, is Trump right of center? I mean, on certain things he is. I mean, he's as far left as any candidate in the race, including the Democrats when it comes to trade. I mean, he's, with the exception of maybe Bernie Sanders. I mean, he's absolutely to the left of Hillary Clinton on the issue of trade.
Sure he is.
Which is like, that's a big deal. Like, I mean, it was something that it's not a top of the line, passion issue for most conservatives, so it wasn't the focus of the race. But I mean, he has issue. Certainly he's been left in his life, and he's definitely moved to the right since those old days. But he's no right-wing ideologue. They want to make him out to that because they want to paint whatever negative associations they can paint with Trump on the right as a whole. And that's a strategy by the media more than anything else.
And the spending is out of control. I mean, spending is. And it was with Obama. It is with. I mean, it's out of control.
I mean, it is. I mean, like and it's worse. It's worse under Trump than it was under Obama. Now that's partially a function of just the way the numbers work because the population grows and everything else. But it has not been an impressive effort to try to cut down spending. And to Trump's credit, he never said he was going to do it. Right. I mean, Trump was never a guy who came in and said, I'm going to get this budget under control. He was never a guy who said, well, I'm going to change these big entitlement programs and make them operate. He's just a guy saying, I'll give you more. A $1 trillion stimulus. Like, these things were real policies that he said that he wanted. So he never ran on those things. I mean, people accuse him of like, oh, he dropped the ball on the budget. Well, what ball did you think he was holding? He never said he was holding that ball. Yeah. And I don't want to set you up to another video because I feel like when I talk about balls.
I was at the White House last week. I was trying to get in and have a conversation, but I couldn't get Trump to come out to the fence
Really?
We were going to talk about these things. He just
Were you loud enough?
no.
Oh, that's
No,
the
there was a
problem.
girl out there with a vagina hat on, and her dog had a vagina hat on too, and that was cute.
Should put her in the cowboy hat and you in the vagina hat. Then he would have come out.
They would have come out.
Yeah.
Stu, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. It was great.
Thanks for walking all the way across the street to Studio 22. So the hot box, baby. The sweat.
Yes.
This is the sweat palace in here.
This
It's
is
warm.
unbelievable. It's like one of those things in the desert where they put it in like the little tents and then they have like 30 people die as they're
Yeah.
like in some cult.
Yeah.
That's what this place feels
This
like.
is what when they smuggle people across the border in 18-wheelers. This is what it
This is
feels
what it's
like
like.
inside there.
A real true border experience. We can open up an amusement park. I like it.
Yeah, it's like walking through the Holy Land, except crossing over from Mexico.
There you go.
That kind of thing. Yeah, we can even light some candles and everything in here with the Virgin Mary. I don't know where I'm going. The heat is getting to me. I'm going crazy in here. It's party time, Mom. It's time to get out of here. Thank you guys. Hey, listen. Check out Stu. You need Blaze TV.
Come on.
Get on blazetv.com. Sign up. Get your subscription. And you got to watch Wonderful World of Stu. How bad did it hurt when they hit you in the face with that ball? They hit you pretty good.
And they hit me. It was multiple times. There's like multiple takes on that thing. So that's in the open, and it just slams me in the face.
And I mean, you
And-
can see the face just boom.
Yeah. And you realize I could lose some weight. That's when I realized it. That's when I realized it. Yeah, right then.
Now you look good.
It's a
I
lot
love
of
that
flesh
show.
moving around in different directions on
It's
my face.
Stu walking down the railroad tracks with a tutu on. It's beautiful, man. I love that show. I'm calling for it to come back if you have the time.
It is a difficult one. You know,
It was a lot that went into that show.
Yeah, it was a
I
lot
know.
that went into it, and so Glenn's got me on other stuff at the moment. But I always feel like at some point I'll bring it back. It was a lot
Just
of
don't
fun
get
to
back
do.
in with that Pat Gray cat. I mean, that
God,
guy,
no.
he's out.
Oh god, he's terrible.
And
Oh
if
my
Jeffy
gosh, what a jerk.
ever.
And Jeffy, yeah, one of the worst people. I mean, he is on the level of all of our, the worst mass murderers in history.
Yeah, he's like an oligarch.
That's where, yes, yeah, a dictator, an oligarch. That's where I put. He's only on that place. Jeffy, influenza. He's right in that area. That's the horrible things that have happened to society.
To me, he's like a smallpox blanket.
Yeah, yes,
is what he is.
Yes.
Yeah, he just infiltrates.
A very heavy smallpox.
Like he
blanket.
looks comforting. He looks
Yeah.
like something that would warm you if you wrapped Jeffy around you.
It's
like something that would really bring you peace and just like
Yes.
like Jeffy kind of looks like you just want to poke him and he'll go
Yes,
and then you have smallpox.
That's true. I feel like I used to explain it to Jeffy in this way of like, and you're the only person I've ever heard go down this road, but it's like I always found it to be kind of huggable. Like I kind of just want to just give him a big hug, and then you realize you've picked up some sort of disease
Like
afterwards.
really, it's like that cactus looks like it just needs to be consoled.
That's it.
3 days later, you're still picking out of your skin. So there you go. All right, for Stu Burguiere, BlazeTV.com, go get it. Check us out wherever podcasts are available, and of course the Glenn Beck radio program and everything.
It's Glue Beck.
Is Glue Beck.
Yes.
The Glue Beck. Go to gluebeck.com. Get his latest book.
Whatever.
What is his latest? Addicted to Outrage? Is that the latest?
Yeah, it's the latest one.
Addicted to Outrage.
Got a new one coming up on socialism this year,
Yeah.
which we just started working on. It's going to be really good.
That is, yeah. And I know he put a lot. If you want to talk about how to explain to your friends that Nazis were actually socialists, that was a great article. That was a very academic, scholarly article put together there.
Apparently necessary in today's world. You could obviously summarize the argument: National Socialist Party, but like
it's already in the name.
It's like yes, there's more nuance to that to it than that, and I guess we had to put that article out to tell people that the truth, because those things do get lost if you don't keep reinforcing them.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, for the peanut gallery over there hanging out,
Thanks, Peanuts.
I caught you guys still looking at Obama's
thing going on over here.
His erection still stands. For Puppet Master Mark Candice, Queen of the Ethiopians, who's not in here right now, she's fired.
Is that personal? What was that?
There's evidence of her. Her sweater is still sit over there in the chair. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. We're at the hour mark. We're going to get the heck out of here. For the next time we see you, who knows what we'll be talking about. I'll come up with all kind of analogies to confuse the hell out of you one more time. But we love y'all. God bless, and we will talk to you next time. Bye.